Go.
And go. Action. Here we are. Welcome to the Queer Network, everybody. This is Queer Talk. We're back.
I'm Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie. I'm Justin. And y'all, it's been a journey to this moment, obviously. And thank you to all that have joined us thus far on the many versions of shows we've done. Queer Talk is back. We also have life stuff. That's Eddie and my podcast. But Queer Talk, we wanted to keep doing as an opportunity to talk about, like we used to do on Queer Talk, just queer things and subjects and discussions, and they'll usually involve another person. So today we actually have a guest joining us for Queer Talk to talk about what?
We are going to talk about being single.
Yes.
All three of us, Justin and I, and our guest are single, and we are all different age groups.
Yep.
So we, yeah, we've never talked about this and what it's like to be single. Do we like being single? Um, yeah, from different age perspectives.
Yep.
And so that's it. Let's just see where it goes. And
Yeah. Welcome to the Queer Network, Aries.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Aries and Justin live in New York, and I live in Toronto. So, well, Toronto and Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So,
And before we get into the subject matter too, because I know people will want to follow you, where can they follow you and what do you do in New York City? Because we live in,
Yes,
we cross in a similar
cross
path
paths, yeah.
of the nightlife scene.
So first and foremost, my at on Instagram is at the Aries, THEE.ARIESS. Um, I I will describe myself, I guess, as just like a hustler, but I'm a creative one. My occupation is a barista and event manager at Sweepy Cafe in Brooklyn. And then I model, I dance, I filmmake, I perform, and quite honestly do not rest in the sector and industry of art that is what it is in New York.
And you
I
also
think that's
promote parties.
Oh yeah, that too. I
It's
host
a huge part of queer
and
nightlife
promote.
in New York
Yes,
City.
I host and promote at a few clubs. Stranger on 57th, which is basically around the corner from Industry. Club Room, Katana when it's in season. I host Harder, which is in Brooklyn at 9 Bob Note.
Before we go any further, also, do you have a preference of pronouns?
Um, I'm gonna say this on here so that's recorded and everybody hears it. You can call me he, she, they, dragon, scorpion, penguin, as long as you're referring to me sweetly and generously.
yeah. All right. So
All right, let's get into it.
let's get into it. Being single.
I have literally never been in a relationship my entire life, not in school, not in my adult life. Definitely have my situationships, mixed signal ships, and friends with benefits or whatever, but like nothing ever in a sense of like a commitment. My time will come. I know where I'm at in my life and what I am focused on, and that is not necessarily the priority. And I've also like just like taken the time out to like standardize what that looks like for me, because even though like not having any experience in that sector of love, I feel like my experience seeing it from like my family and also from other people's perspectives, it kind of it it put it into perspective for me where it's like there are there will be a time where you'll be able to experience this and you'll be able to have that feeling, but right now it's about you creating it for yourself and putting it into yourself so that when you see it you know what it looks like, you know how to experience it the right way. And and it's also like a matter of me literally being 22 and like having my entire life in front of me and like building my foundation and my stability period, and just like trying to create a foundation for my life so that when I get into that level of connection with those people, it doesn't feel like a distraction, it doesn't feel like I'm being held back, it doesn't feel like I'm stagnant at all.
couple things just from what you said. So you said that you wouldn't be monogamous. Is that correct?
I the relationship would totally start off committed, but at some point I would the question would come up of polyamory or openness in some way. Not that I am against monogamy in any way, shape, or form. I feel like monogamy will come for that specific guy or person, whoever it is. Because like I identify as pansexual, gay in the I guess in the broad sense, because I would choose a man over anything else. But queer in the broad sense of just like I am into like personality, I'm into connection, I'm into vibes. And so like whoever I end up with, I would hope that like they would understand that in a way.
Obviously, to each their own, and there's so many new types of ways of being in relationships, but if we were just if we weren't being somewhat committed to just the development of like a single relationship at the beginning, I would feel like you're just still dating lots of people. Like you're not necessarily building like, and maybe over the course of that openness you will develop like stronger feelings towards one person. But I also think we need to be open to the idea that like some people will never be in committed relationships to one person because they actually don't want to be, and society has made them feel like they have to be. But now we are giving them the space and the opportunity to like, no, their committed relationship is to themselves, and everyone else around them is just part of the extension of their experience. Like they don't need that, what you were even saying, Aries, at the beginning, the companionship that you look for. You're like, oh, I see this in other people and they have their person. Well, to some people, they are their person for
Yeah,
themselves. And that's
absolutely.
empowering. But for others, they're like, no, I want that partner.
Yeah, I believe in experiencing new things. I believe in having the in sharing the human experience with people.
I agree.
And when it comes to like being single and dating, um, as like, you know, inexperienced as I am, like I have a standard. I know what I want and I know what I want out of these experiences when I have them. And sometimes it's a hit or a miss. For me, I do like you were saying, like, you know, some people are single and dating, but they're not really building anything. Well, I kind of am the opposite. I don't know, like if I'm dating you, that means that I do see something that like could happen. Um, and I'd be fine if we did just become friends, you know? But there is like some kind of vibe, some kind of like connection that we have that's making me be like, wait, I want to experience this again and again and again and again with this person.
But would you
Um,
be willing to do that with multiple people at the same time?
I I do it now.
Yeah.
I do
But
it
that's,
now. Like I don't
I
know. I
mean,
do it now.
how different is that than just dating? I guess it's the same thing, but I feel like our
I
community is
think it.
more open to like multiple at
Yeah, one of my friends called it intimate friendships, which
mm,
was which is basically you have this connection with this specific person that is unique to that friendship. Friendships are unique in their own right because you can go anywhere from there. Their foundation. And so when I am, you know, going out with these people, it's not because I'm just like looking to get off for a night or like think they're hot and, you know, think that I would look good with them outside. No, it's because we like actually like had a conversation and did things and it made me feel like you're in it for the ride and you're like in it for the fun of it. And I can be down with that. Like I'm very much like a spontaneous, impulsive kind of person. It's very Aries of me. To just like, you know, go for things, like do things just to feel good, just to feel something. Um, and
but in the midst of that exploration, there's always going to be multiple energies going on in these
for sure.
situations we're speaking about when there's these intimate friendships that
Yeah.
what's the line between Are we dating? Are we seeing other people? Are we open? It's not just us. Both people know that, but when you're out and about, you're spontaneously, you want to be with someone else. Is that
Right.
person okay with that? I think
Yeah.
this is what our community is sort of trying to figure out how to do, but like everybody wants something different. Everybody wants to be free and in a relationship at the same time. Is that possible? For some, yes, but for others, they want the commitment. Like they want
Yeah.
somebody that's with them every time, not just like, oh, I'm just gonna go over there for now.
You
Which
know what?
there's no judgment either way because it is what it is for
It
whomever it's
is,
for.
yeah, for sure. The number one solution to all of that, communication.
Does your generation, do they not date, or do they just have sex? Or because it sounds a lot like there are a number of people you're having sex with
Mhm.
that are your friends, and maybe some aren't your friends, but I'm just trying to figure out because again, it's I want to compare
Okay.
it to
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Yeah. Yeah.
generation, to the people who grew up at my time who are listening to this who are like, holy shit,
And I,
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 No, it sounds kind of wild
And
when you
we
hear
haven't
it out
even
loud.
gotten on to Justin's whole thing yet, but I'm just
Yeah,
trying to like,
for sure. I
but
understand.
I think to this really does bridge what we want to talk about because to talk about being single, part of that is about relationships because the being single to being in a relationship is the bridge. Like what is the in between
Yeah.
of those two things? But I agree, Eddie. We need to circle back
Like
to like
focus. Yeah.
our
Focus.
experiences of actually being single, which are exactly
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
I
I get
come
that.
from like this middle ground where I remember when I was growing up, it being more like what I'm sure Eddie experienced in terms of there's a relationship, it's yours, you're in it together, it's monogamous. Even if on the side people were doing other things, they didn't tell anybody. It
Yeah.
was their own thing.
Right.
I certainly thought that was going to be my life, and then had two relationships where I thought that's still going to be the plan. But then realizing that this community is so much
Yeah.
more vast and expansive than that, like, and I haven't been in a relationship since then, so I really don't know what my next one's going to be like. But I sit in a space of just openness to all things. So while I'm single in this moment, I have I try to put less expectation on what this next relationship is going to be, whenever it is. And that
Okay.
gives me peace for like the present moment as
Yeah.
I'm single and enjoy being
Right.
single.
Here in New York, being single is like a vending machine. Once they're done with you, they will go back and get another one. And it's just a
We laugh
dollar.
at that.
It's just a dollar that they got to put in, and another little treat, another
but
little snack comes.
but Aries, I don't think that's just in New York. You know,
No, I don't think it's
I
just in
think
New
that's
York.
in most big cities,
Yeah.
and
No,
it's
for sure. Yeah.
and this is what I'm trying to find out. Like, what is it like being single at our different ages? And it seems to me it's pretty easy to be single in your generations because whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, like it seems to me it's all about sex. And it's I'm actually getting uncomfortable, you know, because it feels to me
Yeah.
like this is just all about sex. And I really struggle with that because,
Okay.
you know,
I think I
Why do
could.
you struggle
I
with that?
do. Go
I
ahead.
struggle with it because again, I come from old school and I come from like when you're in a relationship with somebody, you're committed. I grew up with very straight morals, and that's why it was very hard for me to grasp this non-monogamy thing. But you know, I just think it's if you're really happy with somebody, like why do you need to go looking elsewhere? Now, again, post AIDS in my world, I mean, it was all about sex. You went out with the intention of having sex, and then
Right.
AIDS happened, and it completely changed. And now
Yeah.
to me, it's gone the other way. I mean, you go to clubs, and I saw this guy's Instagram the other day, and the videos that I saw of in clubs and in, you know, fairs and different things where people just having sex on the street, and in clubs people are fucking, and I was like, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
so to me, it's very much the world now is just, it's just all about having sex, and a relationship or having a boyfriend is just kind of a side thing.
Well,
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
I'm going to quickly say something, then you go for it. I would say that the sex is now more just about sex, and it doesn't like define the relationship like we've been taught. At least I was taught
Yeah.
growing up, like sex is
Yeah.
this thing that's like just for one other person. It's very sacred, and I don't think that all sex isn't sacred anymore, but I think we hold it as this like interaction that you can have with anybody if you're into it.
Sure.
That doesn't mean it diminishes your relationship with your partner or to yourself,
Yeah.
but that does require some level of self-respect for yourself to do only the things that feel good to you, and also respect other people's boundaries in those situations. Because yes, there's a lot of sex happening in clubs now again, and I think absolutely to your point, Eddie, it's because we've you don't HIVs is not a death sentence. HIV is not a death sentence anymore
No.
like it used to be.
Yeah.
And so I think the revolution of sex has returned. Like you said, it used to be like that before AIDS. And I think this is what we're grappling with as a community. How do
Yeah.
we do this? How is it meaningful? Because you're dealing with so many different people's relationships to sex, relationships to themselves. Like how do they use it to validate themselves? We've talked about this before on the podcast. Do they use it to gain something? And that is all in the eye of the beholder. What is it for you? And we can't decide that for whomever we're going to engage with.
Right. But Aries, like take yourself out of this, like your how you feel about it. I'd like to know like this. I hate saying your
The
generation,
experience.
your
Yeah. No,
generation,
I get what you're asking.
but the people that are like, the
In my
20-year-olds out there,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, am I right? Is it just like, because it seems to me it's just all about, and I know what you're
Yeah.
saying, Justin, and
I
you.
get yeah, I get it. And I do want to like relate to the whole like, the strict like kind of like sex thing of like, this is only for one person, it's for marriage, blah blah blah. A lot of people in my generation were all Gen Zers. I didn't really grow up as a Gen Zer. I grew up as a millennial because I had millennial parents. So like a lot of my values are not similar to other 20-year-olds of this generation. But what I have seen is that there's a sense of like self-sufficiency that we've developed in this generation where we feel like we can have it all and do it all. Which is not something I completely stand by because I've always grown up with the teaching of like, we're a community, you raise a child by the village. It takes a village to raise a child. And it is a matter of community and asking for help and having friends or whatever. Society has diminished a lot of those things in this generation as of recent, and I've noticed it a lot in the movies, in the just the media itself. The importance of friendship and the importance of relationships has gone out the window.
Is
So
is your generation even dating? Like what
I don't even know at this point. I feel like I feel like it literally is like temple run, like you go as far as you can, and once you're done, you either restart or you just move on.
but
Like
that's
seriously,
that's a good question. Like that's
yeah.
and
Like
I mean,
I couldn't tell you because then we'd have to define dating, which
uh,
means is it just going out and dating somebody to have a good time, or is it going out with this one specific person every time you're going out to date? And that's what I feel like in this generation. It just looks very different for each person. I feel like now we just have more freedom of deciding how that looks for each other, and as long as we are respecting other people's boundaries, um, our generation lives on assumption. We live on how people act compared to what we think they should be.
or what they
The
say.
expectation, the what they expect people to do for them in return of what they give is misconstrued.
like I think your generation is like anything goes. That's one thing. And the
Mhm.
other thing is I think that there is a lot of I just think there's a lot of disrespect. I think people, and there's a lot of, it's just all about and it's not just your generation. So I get confused of what, is the Gen Z, Gen X, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even people, probably Justin's generation and down, like I know I saw this growing up, like as I went to my 30s and 40s and 50s, that the generations coming after me and the young people, it's like it's all about them. And
Yeah.
they're so self what's the word, self-entitled or whatever the word is.
Mhm.
And so it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and like you even mentioned it, like your generation, like, well, we can do whatever we want to do. There's no respect for how someone's feeling, because people can hide behind social media.
Yeah.
And it's not like when we used to go out to a bar and you'd have to walk up to somebody and you'd have to, like, unless you were very aggressive, you just go up to somebody, and people did that and say, hey, like, do you want to dance? That's what we did. We
I've
asked people
totally
to
had that
dance, for God's sake.
experience. No, and that's my favorite
You
thing. Like
know?
that's my
Or
favorite
you'd have to
experience.
you'd have to wait for someone, you look across the room and they're smiling at you, and then you go and talk to them, and then you have a little conversation, and then you buy each other a drink, and then maybe you end up going home together. Like, oh my God, it was so beautiful. But
I
doesn't
literally did this
That's
last
a
night.
dream.
what's
No,
that?
legit. That's my thing. Like I've had that experience maybe like twice for sure, and it was the best organic like interaction I ever had. And like I feel like that's what like honestly got me into like cruising and like going to circuit parties or whatever, is like being able to like walk up to somebody and them not being on their phone hitting you up on Grindr saying come to the back room. Now they come up and say, hey, what's your name, and shake your hand and hug you and start a conversation.
But that's not the
um
norm. That's not the norm, right? These days.
no, it's not. No, not in our generation, because everybody's on Grindr, everybody's on Sniffies, everybody's on Scruff, everybody's on Jacked, everybody's on
Yeah,
Tinder, looking on their phone to figure out who these people are, when you have to talk to these people. You have to literally
exactly.
see these people.
I will say that based on working in nightlife now for 2 years in New York City, like there are rumblings of a return to exactly what you're describing, Eddie, where people are getting fed up, as we all are and have been on the dating apps. It's just gets too disrespectful because people can just hide behind a
The
ghosting
wildest
situation
things.
anytime they want. And so we want to actually experience it in the moment. But this is going to require a different type of discipline that I don't think our community has had to follow for a very long time. Again, back to AIDS, there was a discipline that was required, otherwise you were going to die. And that then we figured the science out behind that so that you can live with that. And sex didn't require that kind of discipline anymore. But now, yes, it's so easy to use the apps, and I'm guilty of it too. Like you don't find something on a night out and then you go look on Grindr before you go to bed thinking maybe, oh, maybe there'll be something there too. But in these moments I ask myself in the last couple of months, like it's actually mostly just a habitual thing to go on, and I find myself like not really actually looking for something, but because perhaps I didn't get to have sex with somebody that night, that I go, oh well, maybe it's like one more opportunity. And it's not a what I'm personally practicing in my life right now is to not judge myself for those moments, because our community has dealt with shame and guilt our whole lives, and I'm just fucking done with those emotions. So whether it happens or not, it's more I'm just continually asking myself to observe those moments, and is that actually how I wanted to spend my time or not, because my time is very valuable to me. And in the end, as I look back on the experiences that I've had, and we've all talked about it, those cruising moments in person are so much hotter, so much sweeter, so much more authentic. And
Yeah.
I get goosebumps just like talking about it, because I'm like, that's the magic.
And
The
that's the magic.
romance.
And
Yes.
this is Justin and I always talk about nuggets, and Justin always uses the words nuggets.
Mhm.
This is the fucking nugget. And this is the juice of this for me, this episode. And I'm gonna get
Eddie.
I'm going to get emotional, because this is what I would love to do, is to get people to think about other people and to have more respect,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
listen, I'm not fooling myself. Like, I'm an older man, and yes, there are guys who like older men, and I realize that. but I'm talking about your generation, and I'm talking about what I learned and what we went through. And to have this happening where there's such disrespect and it's just all about sex. Like we're talking, and look how we all lit up and loved this thing about just romancing somebody and like
Yeah.
just going up to someone and say, "Hey, I really like your smile. Do you want to, can I buy you a drink?" Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah. It's the
Anyway,
Yeah.
best thing. I did that last night. Met this guy. It wasn't, we didn't even talk. It was like, it was at Battle Hymn.
Mhm.
I come up to the stage and he's there and I'm like, and he starts dancing back to me and I'm like, okay, yes, I'm here for it. And then we started talking. We got to know each other a little bit and got his number by the end of the night and been talking this morning. I'm like, that's what I want. I don't want to have to like, I'm not looking on my phone because bitch, you have filters. You got
Yes.
Facetune. Like I look like this on the photos and off.
Yes.
So you know what I'm
But isn't
saying?
that
Like,
crazy how we
yeah,
still, even though we know, I catch myself doing it. You see somebody in person, but then you like want their IG so that you can like scroll and see what kind of person is this. But again, all of that I think is part of why my generation and your generation make assumptions about people,
yeah.
as to your point, because we
About
we have
everything.
this quick like just flick through the feed. It's like you can know something about someone very quickly, but what you don't know is that that's a really big assumption you're making about a human being based on pictures that you have no context of. And yes, you're not going to
Fabricated
be wrong about
identities.
everything, but you
Yeah.
definitely are going to be wrong about many things when you make
Yes.
assumptions about people that you're just seeing a picture of.
Yeah, I feel like people believe that Instagram is real life, and it's not whatsoever. I've dealt with like and like being single and like on Grindr or whatever, and like getting hit up by an account, um, and a guy, and they're not my type, they're not somebody I prefer to have sex with, and I would simply be like, hey, not interested. Not that you're not attractive, you're just not my type. And they're like, oh, so you're calling me ugly? I'm like, no, I'm just saying you're not for me. There is somebody out there for you. It's just not me. And
you don't have to be interested in somebody, but if you connect with somebody, instead of them and they're like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" and then they disappear, like just say, I'm just not, you're not my
yeah,
type. Like just
yeah,
respond. You said before about communication, and Justin, you said, where do we go from here? To me, the most important thing is just have respect for people. And just say, look, you know what? And it's happened sometimes to me where people do that, or I do it for them. It's like that's all it takes.
just takes
It's
a
like,
simple, yeah, just a little word, a sentence,
yeah,
I
legit.
think this brings up that like the online world requires different etiquette that like is a
Yeah,
completely different situation than like physical social settings. And so I think that we have done a pretty poor job, not necessarily one specific group's fault, but it's been a hard thing to try to figure out social etiquette on apps because you literally can hide behind it. You don't have to.
absolutely. Yeah,
And yet, if we were to see everybody's online behavior like in a chronological order and get to like sift through it, I think we would all be like, we're all
oh,
assholes.
yeah,
What's going
yeah.
on? Because we
I
would
get
never
very
do
paranoid
those
on
things
that.
in person to people.
Yeah.
We would never treat each other that way face to face. Sometimes it happens face to face, but it's pretty even in the gay bar scene. Like, yes, it can be sassy sometimes, but it's typically not rude.
does your generation even want to be in a relationship? Are they okay being single? Is it more about having sex and having fun, or you know, do they strive to be in to meet someone and be in a relationship?
That's so hard to answer because it just seems like, to answer your question, no, they're not. They're not looking to be committed. They're not looking to be tied down. They're not looking to settle right now because we're young. We're young, dumb, and free, and we're doing what we want and we're living how we want because we just got the fucking keys to this 21-year-old car. And we're riding the fuck out of life. And we get to this point when 26, 27, 28, where we're like, oh wait, we're still going up in age, and it's about to be a 3 instead of a 2 now. And then it's going to be a 4 instead of a 3. And I feel like my generation right now hasn't had that shock yet, hasn't had that reality check. And they will, and they either will crash and burn, or they will rise up and, take the fire and walk with it.
And
But
as
that's only a matter of time.
yes, and as you were saying that, when you said you do whatever the fuck you want, it's because you can.
It's
And in
because
my
we can, because
generation,
we have the access.
when AIDS happened, we couldn't. And that
Yeah,
was the thing that stood up and bit us in the face because so many people died. And
yeah.
I don't even know if your generation even knows that.
I don't think the generation of now understands that or appreciates that enough. Like, they will never understand that feeling. They will never understand that the emotional trauma and turmoil and impact that had on the gay generation, on the gays period. Um, but I feel like that's a matter of education and making the space for that conversation to happen, and allowing people to give their opinion, but also state facts and
and
make
and
it
that
very,
will come with relationships. There needs to
yeah,
be a nurturing of intergenerational relationships within our queer community that has been lost, but it's been lost because there's no bridge, because they all
yeah.
died,
They're
unfortunately. And
separated. Yeah,
we
yeah,
need to build
yeah,
that bridge back, because that would provide the type of education that's not patronizing to the younger people, because I do think there's an element of them
yes,
feeling like they're being spoken down to. You
yeah,
don't know because you didn't experience it. That will not bridge the gap. What's going to help is just natural, authentic relationships between people of different ages, which is complicated in our community only because
already.
we also have sex with people who aren't our age. So that brings another element into these relationships where it's not just a friend. Sometimes you're fucking this 65-year-old and you're
Yeah,
23. And that's
yeah.
not a problem, but it does
Mhm.
mean there needs to be more communication about these things so that it can be, I don't even know what the word is, like we can just it can flow more effortlessly and with less friction.
When I said that, it wasn't like, oh, well, if you guys knew what it was like back then, I mean, that's not, that
Yeah,
to
no,
me is not going
for
to
sure.
do it. To me, what's going to do it is you don't go back, you deal with now,
Yeah,
and it's about people learning to respect other people. And then the other thing, and you said it earlier, Aries, and to me, the most important thing in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a love relationship, whatever it is, it's communication. And you said it before. But people just don't. This is again, I feel like this old man, like you younger generation, like you almost don't know what it's like to communicate because people don't talk to each other anymore. They're on their phones all
No,
the time.
that's
They
a
don't
huge
have
part of it.
conversations.
That's
yeah.
exactly it, Eddie.
It's
That
literally the reason.
the art of communication has
So
not,
long.
it's diminished, but it's also been transferred into a different form because it's only
Yeah,
through a device now. So it's like, how do we not lose that? Well, we have to choose to not always use this. Like, that's a choice
yeah.
that has to be made, and you have to choose to nurture relationships with people of different generations in your community. That's the only way it's going to happen.
And be
And
open to
that will
that.
build respect and
Yeah,
empathy, and then you won't be able to just brush someone off without thinking like they don't matter. No, they do matter, because they're one of your queer brothers, they're one of your queer sisters. That This is what needs to happen within all of the letters of our LGBTQ plus IA community, and it's a lot.
it's a lot. It really is.
But what I want to say about being single, it's taking me so many years to accept being on my own. And it's also teaching people how to be happy with themselves.
Yes.
And, would I like a relationship? Probably. But I always say it has to be with the right person. And what that means is someone that's like, is going to be my really good friend and someone that I can, that I really like. it's not just about loving and having sex with. It's about really liking somebody and liking to hang out with that person. So if I was to find that person great, do I need it? No.
No.
And that's the difference. The difference, and this is an age-old thing, the difference between need and want. There's so many people who need. That's not good. You shouldn't need anything. You can want something. But once you need something and then you start having expectations and all this other stuff comes up, and then you're going to be in trouble.
When I go to a club, when I was going out when I was 21, it was way more about experiencing this, gay nightlife scene where these people were out to have a good time, not on their phones, not clicking up, not, trying to fuck, or have sex all the time, and just enjoying the time that they are out with you. And I learned very quickly that that is not the way people do it in New York. They are
Depending.
very more.
It depends on the scene, because I will say
It
even
does,
in New
yes,
York, there are some environments now where there's no phones allowed on the dance floor. These
yeah,
boundaries
yeah,
are
which I
starting to be
love.
put up where it's like, no, we don't let this seep in to the
Yeah,
authentic connection that only
yeah,
happens when nobody is distracted by this.
yes, yes,
Justin,
exactly.
where is that? Because it's so, Aries, I mean, Justin, I've been doing this for years, and it's so crazy how often we think the same. You just said that, and I was about to say, I wish there was a club where you
Yeah.
actually couldn't bring your phone into the club. Now,
Well, there are,
that's a start with the dancing, but
yeah. I want to get to a point where we're throwing a party where literally you have to put your phone in coat check and you will literally have to be without your phone the entire night. I feel like the start of it is creating spaces like that, is creating a place where that is a norm.
what about people who don't go to bars? What about people who don't go out and party and are single?
But
Like,
Mhm.
that's why I think the dating apps have been a good thing for certain people, because they are not social butterflies that want to be in that environment. And so
Right.
this gives them a space and a place to do it. But they have to sift through the shit. I mean, how different is that
Yeah.
than having to sift through the shit in person when you're at a
In
bar?
person.
You
no, it's
still have to
absolutely true.
sift.
I just wish that, again, this would be my change if I could change one thing. You're absolutely right, but it can be so damaging, you know,
Exactly.
to people. And
Exactly.
how do we get people to have this respect and just, and because I'm telling you, in my generation, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because you're older. People don't necessarily like older guys. Yes, there are some, but but
Very
like,
small.
what do we do when we can only thing we have is to go on these apps, and it's like mostly young people or people who are, in a relationship. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, sure, we can go on that, but it can be very lonely and very, what's the word when it's not good for you? Like, your ego, your insecurities. Like,
What I have learned is that humans respond to human behavior. You smile at them, say hi, and I think that's also like going into the cruising or whatever. That plays a big part in like I guess my dating life is like watching body language, which
Mm.
is a huge part, especially when it comes to sex. Like learning somebody through that. True, yeah, that's fun or whatever, but like understanding like when people are looking at your lips and licking theirs, or checking you out next to you, like it's
And
those
this,
little things that you pay attention to that really
yeah.
can spark something. Because like
But here's the
that
thing.
connection when it's unabashed and they're just doing that and you're like, oh, he's into it. That's a real like, okay,
Yes.
I can do something with this because it's in your face. It's not
Yes.
fake. It's not on the
But
phone. They're not sending you a picture on Snap to five different people, the same
yes,
picture.
but hold on.
Okay,
But
sorry. Yes.
there's a reason that is lost, and that is because people don't know how to listen to those things because they've been spending so much time on their phone. And so when they're
Yes.
in the club, when they're in-person situations, they literally don't know how to read body language. It's
Yeah.
awkward. There's times at the
Yeah.
bar where I'm literally like, I didn't give you any indication that I
Any.
wanted to engage sexually with you, even flirting with you. and you're still flirting with me. And that's because they don't know how to read body language. They don't know how
Yeah.
to understand like
No.
the actual energy that's flowing back and forth, because the energy doesn't flow the same on here. So what I want to say to that is that we have this old style of cruising dating that is still there in some capacity. We have
You have to modernize it.
this new modern way of connecting with each other.
Yeah.
We don't quite understand what your generation, and because we're all still here at the same times, I think part of what our purpose right now is to bridge the gap between these two mediums, because they're not going anywhere. This
They
is
are.
not, until we
Yeah.
lose the internet, this will always be here. And so we do need to create different boundaries around different settings that are sacred, like the dance floor or like a club.
Yes.
You don't need the
A party
phone,
period. Yeah.
but also on the apps and on
Mhm.
in those online spaces, because people will always be using them. We
Yeah.
also create another type of not just another type of respect there, that like but that's upon yourself. Like it's hard
Yeah.
to, all you can do is do it yourself, and then
Yeah.
hope that others follow that example in connection with what they experience through you.
Yeah. It's very hard to control masses. It's very easy to control yourself. And I feel like that's the main thing that people leave. I think that's the lesson. I think that's where it starts. You
Yeah.
need to learn to control yourself.
What you guys
Yeah.
are saying is that's very easy to say, but if these young people have no what's the word, Justin, help me. There's no like
Accountability.
no, there's
Contact.
no there's to learn from.
Yeah, there are
Where
no
learn?
examples.
There's no
No examples.
example
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because they grew up on the
Yeah.
fucking phone. These
Literally.
Yeah.
kids, where do they learn this from? Where do they learn how to be respectful? Where do they learn how to interact with people? Where do they learn body language? They don't. This is the
No.
problem.
And this
Yeah.
is the chaos of our time. It is
Yeah.
truly going to be what we do, what we reckon with our whole lives, is how we integrate this device and this technology in a way that doesn't destroy us. Because
Yeah.
when we start destroying empathy and respect between us,
You
we
lose
we, we already
humanity.
know what happens. We're seeing it
Yeah.
in
You're losing
politics, we're
humanity
seeing it
for sure.
globally, we're seeing it.
You're a really good person to ask this question because you work in a bar. So you see people from Aries age to my age.
Yep.
You talk to people. What is your from that perspective, two things. What do you see about singleness? And then I want to know how you feel about it, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay. What I see in the bar is people are, first of all, they are realizing how much in-person connection is more important than they realized. Now, COVID is a big reason I think we are experiencing a level of like, oh, these spaces are not, just because we're in 2023 and we've developed so much more, we've progressed in terms of our queer agenda in the world and acceptance and equality. These bars are still like some of the only places that people come to feel fully themselves, fully safe. So as
Yeah.
much as it's like, oh, we've made it this far, I see people seeking acceptance and unconditional love in these environments. Unfortunately, it doesn't always, I think in our world of like fast pace, they think they can get it immediately. They're disappointed. I see them getting disappointed when they don't receive that right away. But I've also seen some of my regulars that keep coming back and they start to realize, oh, this just takes time to build that. And you actually have to continue to show up. And it can't be about sex all the time, because it will never, that will always be disappointing, because it's not always going to happen. But if it's about actually just being with your people, being in the environment, and you'll meet people and you will make friends, and they might become your best friends, or they might just be acquaintances that you see at the bar every time, but either way it builds community. And I think it's sometimes it's tough, because you can see that they want a relationship sometimes, or they want that person for them, and they might find it. I've seen it where like for the last like 6 times they came, nothing, and then the 7th time they're making out with this guy the whole time, and as the bartenders we are all just like, woo, like you did it, like. But that requires patience and like persistence and just like and knowing that your worth is not attached to it happening or not happening, but when it does, it's really special. I even last night going to a party and I got to make out with somebody and that hadn't happened in quite a while. And I was just like reminding myself that when it happens, it's very special and to enjoy it. But when it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean you're not worthy of it. It just means that it makes the times that it happen even more special. So it's going to take some patience
Yeah.
to.
Are people still coming to the bar because they want to meet somebody?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And yet they're also coming because they have a group of friends and just want to have a dance party.
Yeah.
Like the other thing I'll add to what I see when I'm watching people is that they come with this expectation of maybe having sex with someone or that like they're going to get something out of the night. But what I notice very often is that they leave with something they weren't expecting to get, which is that sense of community that like that this will just take time and it will take, you know, specific people putting specific kinds of parties on that's intention is to very much that celebrate each other, create community, create empathy and respect, and have a really fucking good time all at the same time. Not just about making money, not just about like stripping our community of our queerness just again to make money. And that's just, I'm noticing it's just very intentional. It's because the bartenders that I work with, like that's our mission for the night. And not every bar is like that. And certainly in Hell's Kitchen, lots of the reputation of Hell's Kitchen is that it isn't that. So it
Yeah.
takes us to change that. Like I'm
Yeah.
just very passionate these days about like this is not going to happen without us. Like we're the ones that have to do it. My relationship to being single is that it's taken me, you know, this long to actually just enjoy being single. Like I don't feel like I'm on a mission to be in a relationship in the same way that I used to once upon a time, which definitely led me down paths where I was conceding more than I actually wanted to the person or to the relationship. Not their fault, completely my responsibility, but I didn't understand that it was my responsibility. I just thought that's what you have to do in order to be in these relationships. And yeah, it does require concession to be in a relationship. At the same time, when it's not the right concessions you actually want to give, you're giving a part of yourself away that like actually you're going to resent that person for eventually if you keep going down that path. So for me now, and I mean Eddie and I have talked about this a lot just in general, like I'm just not on a mission anymore to I'm not on a mission at all anymore. My mission is more what we were just talking about, creating
Yeah.
community, like building friendships that we'll see where that goes, like creating safe spaces for people to be themselves, because that's what I've been able to create for myself. And on the way, I'm gonna meet people. And on the way, I'm gonna maybe date some people. But that's not like what I wake up and try to find anymore. I'm just like having a good time being single.
It doesn't matter your age, Aries' age, or my age. The big difference for Justin now, and you're already doing this, Aries, is that you're now doing what's right for you. You're living your life the way you want to live your life. And I know, not get into details, but a lot of times we get into something and we do things that the other person wants us to do, or we live our life the way we're not actually being authentic. And the
Mm-hmm.
big thing now is Justin is being authentic and he's exploring different aspects of himself,
Mm,
and that I don't even get to see a lot. I hear about it or I see the posts, but this is the big difference,
mm,
that and you've already said that you're living your life the way you want to live your life, and you're not going to compromise your life for somebody. Can we all agree that one of the keys to to being single, to being in a relationship, to living life is to really work on being authentically being yourself
Yes.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
doing what's right for you and not being like pushed down or saying, "Oh no, like you can't do that," or "You shouldn't be doing that," or whatever. Is that? Can we all agree on
I Yeah, it's a pressure I feel like society has put on our generation. If you agree, Justin, it's pressure. It's pressure that people put on themselves because of the society's beauty standards, society's size standards, society's style standards. People are now comparing themselves to these other people who are living their authentic lives or non-authentically, but this is what they're portraying and believing that that's reality when it's not. But then you go on Instagram and you go on Facebook and you go on YouTube and you're dealing with fucking CoverGirl and Naomi Campbell's and Willow Harlow Willie
Yeah.
that's her name. I don't
I
know.
think
Forgot it.
I think
That.
the tough part about our time is that once upon a time that used to be something you only saw for 15 minutes on eTalk, like once a day. Whereas now, we talked about this last week too, it's
Consumption.
like
Yeah.
incessant. It's like right there.
Yeah.
And the psychology of our minds and the habits that our mind creates and the pathways that it creates, it's hard to break some of those habits sometimes, and you don't think it's affecting you until all of a sudden you realize how much of a slump you're in, just because you've been comparing yourself to these unrealistic standards on your
Yeah.
phone
Yeah.
unconsciously, and then bam,
Yeah.
you're like in a shitty mood because of it, which comes back to different boundaries and different etiquette that we have to start creating for ourselves as a community, holding ourselves responsible, but also holding other people responsible. When you see it, you call it out. I do it all the time at the bar. People will come up and be like, "Oh, like, I know this is stupid, but like, can I get like a vodka soda?" I'm like, "Baby, I want you to get whatever you want to get, and can stop judging yourself for wanting what you
Yeah.
want. If you want a
Right.
vodka soda, or if you want the sweetest fucking Shirley Temple that's so fucking dirty, I want you to come up to me and ask for that like you want it so bad, because I know you do." And I think that is, again, back to, it takes us calling these things out when we see them with love, not
Completely.
to hurt someone, but
Mhm.
with love.
I think, and like through this conversation, it's honestly really inspired me to like think about like the parties that I want to throw because I have this like push and like pull when it comes to like being in nightlife, and like I've been wanting to like create a party where it really did feel like you were coming to an old school bar where you met somebody at a bar at the bar, like you ordered a specific drink and that said something about what you were doing or like why you were there or whatever. And I feel like that would just be really fun
Let's
to
do
like
it.
create.
I
Yeah,
would,
like I
I would,
create a
I don't
theme.
even go to bars, and I would come to that party. But we'd be like showing your generation, up
Yeah,
to Justin's generation, like a different way of doing it.
a different way. Yeah, just a different way of doing it.
I
Like
know that way. I know that way because
yeah,
I lived it. But to show people that way, I think people would love it.
And I also
yeah, no,
think it would
and
bring
especially
your
in this day and age.
generation back out.
Say that again, Justin.
Think it would also bring your generation back out to these
Yeah,
environments, and would do exactly what we already talked about, bridge that gap a little bit more with the
yeah.
intergenerational relationships.
Like I
Absolutely.
genuinely feel like that's a very viable thing
And
to
it's
happen.
happening.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, and
is
I've definitely
happening.
like been
I
to
see it.
those
I think
actually.
what we're sensing and what I'm hearing, even just from this conversation, is the importance of the step forward being that in-person, meaningful parties that are like, or just gatherings of people that want this,
Yeah.
is the next step to bridging gaps between multiple things. How we
Yeah.
use technology to our advantage and not be taken advantage of, how we create intergenerational relationships so we have more empathy between all people, and
Yeah.
create these safe spaces. That I think is sort of, I wouldn't have seen this coming as someone who is younger, that like a thought one thing about a party and what it is, but that there's actual value to these parties beyond money and sex. It's like, no, this is actually about
Yeah.
creating community.
Yeah.
And that is what we have an opportunity to, one by one,
Yeah.
individually, as
Oh,
the example, showing up to these places and demanding that that is what we want out of this
yeah.
environment. We do have to demand this kind of respect in these spaces, and that when I go out, it is about also building community. And if I have sex along the way, great. If I meet someone and start dating them along the way, great. But what is the core is that we're just building connection with people that accept us for who we are. We don't have to hide anything. We get to be ourselves completely. Everything else is cherries on top.
And I'll let you have the last word, Aries, but let me say all of that, what Justin said, and it starts with respecting yourself, respecting other people, and how Justin and I always end our own life stuff talks is it's about being kind and about showing love.
Yeah.
So
Very that. All I have to say is thank you guys so much for putting up with my big ass mouth this entire Zoom. And no, it's been very fun like digging into this because I think the big thing and we've talked about is like there's no conversation, there's no like actual sit down and like a discussion about this. And I'm glad that this is happening now because this branches into different things. This goes into so many different core aspects of being queer and single in this world that like once you get here, I feel like honestly everything else is just a matter of like adding on and uh just like reconfiguring what that looks like for that specific person. So
it's not
no.
easy being
No.
single. It's not easy being in a relationship, but let's, we can all do our part. We have to start somewhere. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And Aries, it was a pleasure.
Uh, an absolute
You'll be
honor,
back.
yes.
Don't
Yeah,
worry.
All right,
you'll be
thank you.
back. And everyone, please stay tuned for or join us for the Instagram live, which we're having next Tuesday. What day is that? What
Tuesday the 28th.
28th at
Mhm.
what did we say? 7 p.m. Eastern
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
And we would watch this and we would love to have what you have to say about it, your comments, and we can talk about it. And it'll be our first Instagram live, and Aries is going to be there. And so let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's keep the conversation going because I think just as Aries said, it's about us actually having these conversations, not making any assumptions about what people know or don't know. Let's just
Yeah.
actually talk about it, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to lead us. That's going to lead us to where we obviously want to go. We're going to
Yeah.
figure it out as we go. Um,
Okay.
Absolutely. That's the
that's
key.
it.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Bye,
Yep.
everyone.
everybody.
All
We'll
right.
see you next time. Keep
Lots
it
of
See you
love.
guys.
queer.
Love you guys.
Love you all, and keep it queer.
And keep it queer.
Balloons. What the fuck is that?
Who did the balloons?
It was me, but I don't know what I did to do it. Peace. I said,
I don't know.
oh, there
Oh,
it
there
is.
you go.
No, didn't you say love? Something about love?
No, I think it's the word, I think the peace sign and maybe saying the word peace. Yeah. Wow. All right.
Okay. That
Bye,
was
y'all.
fun. Okay, bye.
Bye.